One, we are live. This is a little paintball therapy after hours. So we have the mood lighting on my side. But we're conversating with Jules, who was in the conversation earlier today with the GZ. We had some technology issues on your side. So, Jules, welcome back. I wanted to give you a chance to conversate and put your 2 cents in with the GZ episode. So why don't you fill in the blanks of how you started with GZ, and then we'll backtrack to basically growing up Maliszewski. Go ahead.
Yeah,
sir.
absolutely. I'm actually heading down to the beach right now. Well, I'm here at the beach now in Ocean City. Got to get out of this COVID stuff, and I need to see the ocean. So that's why it just signal, out in BFE. That's just how it goes.
Yep, absolutely, no problem.
Ground Zero is an awesome team. I grew up watching those guys on Push, Sunday Drivers. A lot of those guys just, I was actually a big fan of Will Royo's way back in the day. So just to give it a shout out, the Jawbreaker videos, when they did those Mardi Gras videos and seeing that 5-man game, that action, that live something, it was awesome. And I told Will this, and this is how it kind of ties in. Like, one of my first email accounts that I did for myself growing up was Julian Rocks at Yahoo. Just wanted to be that loud, boisterous guy and, let it know when I'm here. And that's definitely what those guys did on the field. So to have an opportunity to be a part of that Ground Zero family, and just, it's my crazy New York dysfunctional family, and I love those guys to death. I've met more friends out of that than I thought I was ever going to meet, and just to kind of connect all the dots from when my dad was playing, and my uncles, all of it. It was awesome. So obviously, with the podcast previously, we had Archie out there, we had Will, Steve Casano, Cole was out there, grew up, with Chris Cole, back in the Baltimore Rats days with my dad. It's awesome. It really is. And I got to bring some other people in as well. And it's a conglomerate of people from all over, and it's paintball players and industry dudes. So to have an opportunity to play with those guys and to continue with those guys is, I'm very fortunate to be able to do that. So I guess the way I got in with it, when ICPL was going to first start last year, I was actually going to go and play with GZ at Chicago. Week and a half before the event, there was a tornado that came through Maryland, and it hit the one portion where I am at. Took down some telephone poles, it wrecked some fields. It's a disaster. And I knew I just couldn't leave my parents in the lurch and have them have to do everything. So I had to bail out the last minute for that reason. That's the worst thing you can do to a team. But it wasn't a lie, and Will is so understanding and such a great dude that thankfully he gave me the pass on that one. And then I got to play with those guys at OXCC for their Mid-Atlantic Classic. It was probably the last 10-man event. Saber Wolves won that one. So on the flip side, I want to give a shout out to those guys. It's a great organization that Mr. Owen has built there and maintained. Obviously class people top to bottom, all those guys, especially when you got to play against, Rodriguez and Rios. Those guys are, threats wherever they are on the field. So, yeah, that was the first event. Got to play against those guys. Played with GZ. Got to play with, great people. Sean Henderson, Albert. That was my first times I got to play and meet Archie. Obviously, I knew Will, and then just the cast of characters that go along with it.
Right.
And then that led to Florida when we were playing in the amateur division. We finished third, fourth, something like that. I can't remember. And then we went pro this year. Then we were right back there and finished 8th or 9th, something like that. And it was a great experience. I've learned a lot from those guys. I feel as though I get to be a contributor on the field for them.
Right.
And I couldn't ask for anything more. Truly.
It's that definite give and take that GZ is known for. History alludes to. Now, actually, that being said, some people know, and the educated know the last name, and basically your birthright into the game of paintball. Would you please share with me some of your memories of growing up in such a paintball centric family? Because I know you're outdoorsman, you like to hunt and fish, and I hear that, but the passion ran very deep in paintball for many years. So I look forward to hearing from it.
Yeah, it's really been an interesting road. I think that I kind of say to some people, my dad's MJ.
Mm-hmm.
And, growing up MJ's kid, you've got a target on your back and everything like that, especially in playing. But I don't think I can grasp how fortunate I am right now yet. This past Christmas or something like that, I was literally sitting around with my Uncle Rich, my Uncle Greg, my dad, and myself, and we're at Greg's house and just looking out on the water, and it's the four of us. And Rich and I are talking about playing ICPL, and I got to wear his ring and see that thing, and it was awesome. And we were really trying to go for that ring, that event. We were close, just came up a little bit short. But I think the biggest thing, and we talked about this, the Sunday Drivers video in the beginning when they talk about image. That's a moment that will always stay with me. My parents, the way our TVs were hooked up, whatever you were watching downstairs, they could watch upstairs in their room. Back when DirecTV was so basic, cable wasn't even cable.
Right.
And I remember putting that video in and watching that downstairs. And I knew my dad was a figure in the sport, but when you get to hear people like Davey Williamson and Rich Telford and LaSoya, all these guys speak about him in a way that it was truly meaningful.
Right.
And I mean, obviously they gave kudos to, Richie and Greg and everyone like that. In the previous podcast with Psalm and Knopp, obviously they tipped their hat towards those guys as well.
Absolutely.
And some big shoes to fill. Really big shoes to fill. Now I certainly am trying.
Right.
And Image gets to play in ICC and a couple other events, and one of the guys, Earl Aquaviva, and he was a part of the Image squad that played in the Pro-Am PSP 10-man
Okay.
with my dad and Richie, along
Yep.
with the cast characters that are still playing now. So some of the guys, just to give those guys a little bit of a shout out as well. You got Mike Doherty, who you can see in the one corner. He's our one snake guy when you
Yep.
see on the ball field. Derek Farrell, who can go anywhere on the field and kill people. Same thing like Steve, Brian Lareo, who had a continuing career afterwards. And I mean, goodness, you got Dave Schneider, Chris Wenderoth. Obviously, not also event. We got Justin Kim. He was the snake guy. There's Derek going into the snake there. Will likes to call him the Bionic Man or something like that. There's Dave. That was an awesome video, by the way, and I loved sharing that with all the guys.
Oh yeah, I hope they appreciated it. It's again, one of those things where you try to put an artistic flair in it. I'm learning the medium, so it's nice to be able to do this, but I appreciate that. Lots of great players on the team.
Oh, I mean, that ICC event is, and there's Richie there. It's going to be something that I will always remember.
Yep.
We did come up a little short. We got second, but hey, look at that stud.
Yep.
Give to Pepe or Pep, because from Oakland Assassins and just murderer for top rank.
Yep, top rank for sure.
Yep, I can't wait to get some of my new face masks.
Yep.
But granted, I'm out here on the beach, so I'm not really worried. And there's Jay Kim.
Yep.
Solid, killer. Yeah, no one can ever take that away from us, and that's one of the great things. And I remember being in that huddle, and it's almost just kind of a surreal moment at the end, and it's like you're here,
right? I mean, when you never want to lose, but when it's losing to Dynasty, you kind of it lessens it just a little bit, but then you also want to say we went over on Dynasty. So it's that bittersweet kind of thing, but that the Maliszewskis, I'm sure, the first thing is you lost. You should have won, but you lost.
Yep. And no, it's I was G2 or G3. It was Kim, Richie, and me. We were the first three dead, and we all looked at each other in the dead box, and we knew then it was game over.
Right.
And Will was the guy who was like, dude, why do you think that you three were the first three that got shot?
Right.
He was the one that was like, you got scouted the entire time.
Yep.
You, Richie, and Justin got scouted. Yep. And it's like, I remember Justin going in the game. It's like, he goes, I don't know. I'm like, just go to the snake. You've been doing it the whole time. Like, he's a pawn for that reason. But if he lives and he makes it, my man's killing people.
Yep.
And who knows? But again, it's hindsight's 2020. To even share the field with those guys, like, it was Dynasty and Image.
Right.
Like, Dynasty and Image.
Right.
I get
that's all that needs to be said, really.
Win or lose, you can never, that will never be taken away from us.
Exactly.
I'm kind of like sitting back here and thinking about it now. Like, I just remember Richie talking in the huddle, and just looking around at all these guys. These are the guys I grew up with, and I mean, goodness. I mean, those guys that I got to call my teammates for that event, I grew up getting bunkered by those guys and overshot because we were the, little sister team to those guys, and they would put a pounding on us. And the one time we beat them at 40, I remember my dad yelled at those guys for about 30 minutes on the field, didn't let them leave. They had to play us, and he goes, you guys are out, let's go. And they beat us in like 30 seconds, and I was the last guy left, and I got shot so much. You could just feel the anger and the pain.
Right. Absolutely.
But yeah, it's just it's how it was. Like, when we were talking, my dad is one of the strictest people, so he'd come up to you with that Tippmann cranked up, and if you didn't know the G count, you didn't know the time, you got shot at 350 in your ribs, in your back, in your neck, and you were out. And that was it. And then you walk up to the next guy. What's the G count? What's the time? What's this? Where are the guys? If you didn't know, and if you were in the snake and your head was down, it didn't matter. That's not an
Right.
excuse. You need to know where all these guys are that are shooting at you.
Yep.
And plenty of times I was on the receiving end of that Tippmann, and it was not a fun experience. But
No.
you live and die by the sword, and that's how you become great players.
Yep. It shaped
And,
you into what you are.
Yes, I mean, certainly. Having those three guys as role models and influences, you almost get some blinders, because obviously I looked at some other guys and wanted to try to find my play style, and I think that I am still doing that. I'm still trying to find how it works for me. I find myself that I could really play anywhere and do well and contribute, but when I get to kind of see the game play out real quick, I can make a couple adjustments and go.
Right.
And thankfully, the GZ guys see that. Will sees that. As they were talking earlier, we had a great practice up at Top Gun and playing the mounds. We had a big GZ practice, all that stuff, and it was great. And there was one game in which I was on the left side, like the snake mounds, and completely went to the opposite side of the field to run down the dude and finish out the game.
Yep.
And and talking to Will, and just again, as Cole was saying, it was a fantastic practice. We got to have all the GZ guys come out, all the teams. You got members of Gold, 24K, GZ Red, GZ Silver, all those guys. Like, we've got guys on guys, and it's great. Like, that is a again, it's a big, loving, dysfunctional family.
Yep.
So,
yeah, it's the best. It's a great way to explain it, because there's lots of layers of relationships there, and it can mean different things to every player, and that's another great testament to the team.
Yeah, I mean, it's just been I've got to meet so many people just in playing the sport, and let alone being with the team and getting even more not personal recognition, but team recognition, because obviously it's a team effort. There's no single person winning these games. You've got quality people such as Will and Archie and Cole, leading us down the field. And we've got a great cast of supporting characters. Christian Collins is a destroyer in the snake. Mike Moore, destroyer in the snake. You got Eugene. We've got Sam Telford. Myself, we had Johnny Greer here playing with us the previous event. Justin Tuggle is just a murderer. He was doing that stuff for us on Image, and to bring him on GZ and watch him just kill people is awesome. I know I'm forgetting dudes, but it's just to be a part of this team is great. And to my buddy Bill Raber, he's my driving partner. He drives because he doesn't want me to drive. Apparently I'm a bad driver, but he's the one that does all the driving, so I just buy him some food, and that's it. It's awesome. It's awesome, really. And I get to say that I've been a part of two classic teams. And it outside of this little tiny community that we have here that we call paintball, it doesn't matter to anyone, but to be a part of those two teams and to have these memories with all of these guys, I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah. You're
fortunate, truly.
definitely blessed to have those people and be in that family. But I mean, it's a double-edged sword. It can be a blessing as much as it can be a curse, depending on the day and the attitude of the ones around you. Now,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that's very interesting to me is the reach of your dad and your uncles,
Mm-hmm.
from the All Americans to Extreme to West Coast, East Coast. Their fingerprints are in a lot of players and a lot of teams.
Yep.
Is there and you don't have to share too much, but it's an interesting dynamic how the brothers are. Is there, a lineup in the brothers? Is one more dominant, one more passive, one more aggressive? Is it kind of like a mixed bag?
Yeah, I really think it's a mixed bag, because all of those all of those guys at one point in time were at the 50 together, just doing work.
Right.
That's how they achieved the greatness that they did.
Yep.
And I think that when you start to play that style, you can't. It's an on switch. It's not
Right.
an off switch.
Right. Right.
And hence it's my own downfall too, because I don't have the off.
Yep.
It's on.
Right.
And you could see that in the previous event when we played against Infamous. 30 seconds left. I was like, disco, let's go. And just, we did get a little chopped up there, but at the same point in time, they weren't able to finish the game. But,
Right.
That's in my little bit of a lack of experience. Just, I want to go.
Right.
Worst comes to worst, we're going to die.
Right.
But then I'm not thinking about the points game, stuff like that.
Right.
I'm going to give a shout out to Sam Telfer, because my man was laying on his stomach for 9 minutes and 30 or 45 seconds. And, it was Christian, myself, and him against 5-6 dudes from Infamous. And that was, it was gnarly.
Yep.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And then I got to bunker a guy on far side in the first game. So that was nice.
Right.
There's no footage. I want to see footage of that.
Right. Well, it's one of those things where in the NXL and in the classic venue, people want more, and that's great. I agree. We should have more and more content where it doesn't impede the game. But we're living in a technology time where cameras are pretty small, and I won't say insignificant from a cost perspective, because when you're doing dozens of cameras and facilitating that's lots of time, man hours, and all of that. But I love watching as much classic game as I can. I understand the chess match, of course. Some people might think that it's a little bit slow. I think it builds up. I think it might start slower than your normal game, but once the rubber hits the road and you're either up bodies and pushing or you're defensive, people can't say that it isn't too intense at those points in times, because it gets wild out there.
Yeah, I agreed. And truly, I think the one thing, I wish they would go to 10 minutes.
Is it 12? Is it
Yeah,
I mean, I know that
12.
they
It's
changed
12
it
right now.
Was it 10 before and then they went
Yeah.
back, they went up to 12?
It was 10-minute games, 10-second countdown.
Yep.
It was just like in the old Super 7 days, 7
Yep.
minutes, 10 seconds.
Yep.
And obviously smaller fields and blah blah blah, but 10 minutes is enough time to kill people.
Right.
And because really in the end, there are more teams playing now. So on the
Right.
flip side, prior to it, it is a little bit of a time schedule dealing with that. But,
Yep.
the days are gone of the 30-minute games with 20 dudes against 20 dudes. And, you didn't really know if someone was winning or not.
Right. Right.
Like this isn't play war. That is why the game is evolved to being what it is now.
Yep. Yeah, and I think that the classic format doesn't necessarily need to have parameters. Like woods ball fields, a specific size and distance. Of course, there's minimums. Minimum. You don't want to play a 10-man game on a 5-man field.
Yeah, we're not going to fight each other in the phone booth.
Right, exactly.
And that's where, I'm sorry to cut you off. When you look at ICC, those fields were different,
Yeah.
Truly, you had 4 completely different fields. Obviously, that woods ball field has changed over the previous 3 events,
Right.
Storms, trees falling, blah, blah, blah. The hyper ball field got changed up a little bit, in a positive way. Not that it was, bad.
Right.
The previous one, it just became different.
Tweaks.
Yes. And obviously the road coming in and all that, changed. They had to change.
Yep.
And then the mounds was the mounds. It just grew some grass and we weren't playing on dirt. And then the hybrid field was interesting.
Yeah.
And we didn't have too many games on that one. I think we had 1 or 2. Got to give a shout out to all A's and Spesh Robinson, because prior to the event, reached out to him and Spesh and Tim and Phil, all of those guys facilitated great practice for us.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, all of those guys in that area, just solid people, top to bottom. And then obviously in the same thing, you got Mr. Russell over there being that tech for us, because he was definitely needed in the past event down in Florida. So I got to be good friends with him for that one.
Right.
It really has been great. And it's interesting to see the game change, at least within the 10-man scope, because when you go to play these 10-man events, it's almost like now in the quote unquote classic format, you're going to get 3 fields. You're going to get a hyperball field. And I will say this, hyperball, not hyper pipe.
Right.
I don't know who says pipe. It's just, So thank you.
I call it hyperball too.
It's hyperball. Hyperball.
Right.
No one ever said hyperpipe. I never heard Matty Marshall narrate a video and go, "Hey, hyperpipe." No. And speaking of which, that's another great guy, because got to sit down and have many great conversations with him. And I'm like, dude, you've narrated, my life of paintball.
Right.
I was one of those people that I know everyone. On the flip side, we to say the fun stories. Like I've had the Lockout guys stay at my house. The old school days in which when they would have a 2 or 3 10-man team come in for a weekend, everyone was getting split between fields, or between houses. You had 4 dudes here, 5 dudes here. Like I had the entire Lockout team at my house.
That's
and
fantastic.
Because it was fun, everyone knows this one. I've told this story and this is fun. I was oh goodness, and the original Lockout, not this whatever new rendition. The guys were fighting each other, ready to go before the game, and boom, there is not upset, but I'll go to that statement later, because I've definitely explained me bunkering people the way he did in Push. But I remember being there. My parents went out to go get food or something like that. And they're like, "All right, Jules, let's order some movies." I'm like, "Okay." And they're like, "No." And then next thing you know, I'm ordering Playboy movies for the entire Lockout team while I'm sitting there. My parents walk in, the movie's getting ready to start. So, of course, it sounds like some bad 70s porno. And they're like, "Wait, what? Upstairs, Jules, up you go." And
right.
Like it's that fun moment. Like I remember Brian Benini being in my house, and obviously he's a California guy, and he's talking to whomever saying, "Look, don't call me at 9 o'clock because that's midnight here." And just being when I was a little kid, I had twin beds. I a dude sleeping in my extra twin bed. Like it's gnarly. Just
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, it's amazing that you had such a group of people around you, that you just grew up in it. That it was interesting because you knew the context of who they
yeah,
were, what they were, and their importance in the family. But you also had those interesting, you know, paintball stories that we all do, some, you know, able to be shared, others not able to be shared all the
yeah. That's
time.
about as gritty as I can get because I got some
Yep.
other ones, but
Right,
but
right. And it's just
those stay for off air.
it's amazing, and it's one of those uplifting things, and the reason why people are responding to what it is that you and I are doing is giving. There's multi points, but the reason why I'm doing it is, one, I have nothing else better to do. Well, I could do other things, but this is very rewarding to me and it makes me happy. But
Yep, totally.
two, it also gives me an opportunity to show my respect and channel that respect to the guys who might not hear it all the time, that need to hear it or that should hear it, or the people that I know want them to hear it. You know what I mean? I talked to your dad for about an hour on the phone, and it was funny because I followed them for years, studying their game. And I don't know if we had more than 10 or 15 words in all of those years. And then to actually be able to talk to him on the phone. And, when he was explaining things, events, milestones, I could say, I was there for that. Now, I was insignificant. I was part of the background scenery. But again, it's one of those important things where I was there. I saw that. Oh, you played at a Masters. Oh, I was there. I saw that. You know what I mean? When you make a change, when there's definite high points, it's one of those things where the brotherhood draws you in, because how many people, I mean, in all honesty, if you had to guess, how many people are still in paintball playing or coaching or whatever who were there for Image's last pro win? Not many. I can't say that there would be many, but again, I was there and we had that conversation and it was special to me. So, I give respect to the family and in the people who were there before us and that taught us how to go on our path. So that's really my motivation.
That's awesome. Interesting. When you were talking about like wins and things like that, obviously I don't have like a first place trophy under my belt. I got a second, but I
Second to
remember
Dynasty. You know what I mean? I mean, with Image, it's not
a
like you're
team of
you're
nobodies,
down
a
down
team of
the street
nobodies.
D4 tournament. You know what I mean? You got to put it in, and I understand it, but it's a completely different context on that scale. So
No, agreed. And I think 2 out of 3 games they maybe win, but
great.
I we've got one in us,
Yep.
for sure. Those guys, like I said, I grew up getting shot by them, and
Right.
I remember the Maliszewski. We were playing the Winstons
Yep.
and just murdering those guys. Come down to finish the game, and the Maliszewski. Obviously, you lose track of people,
Right.
and I see this ref looking towards like the back corner in this area. So I'm like, well, here's the blind spot. So I'm shooting an area that happens to also be where the dead box is, but I don't know. No, truly, I honestly don't know this. I mean, I will bonus ball you off the field. I'm going to
Right.
shoot you.
Right.
I'm going to
You'll
wave
own
at
it.
you and shoot
You'll
you the
own it.
entire way.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
I'm that guy. People hate playing against me, and they love to shoot me when it's done.
Right.
And you got to dish it to get it. So not it doesn't faze me none by any means.
Right.
But I just love shooting people.
Yep.
And I'm gonna give a shout out to the now defunct 720 video. I remember it was one of the World Cup things, and they're interviewing people like, "Oh, what's the thing you love about paintball?" And this one dude is just like, "Why do I love paintball? Because I can legally shoot people."
Yep.
And everyone just looks at him, and he just shakes his head. And he's like, "Yep." And I'm like, I mean, it's a lot of fun to shoot people with a paintball gun. It really is.
Interesting side note: 720s from my area, Minnesota.
I had no idea.
Yep.
Really,
yep, I know
I had no idea.
Yep, I know all of the 720 guys. I think actually one of the guys' names was
probably
Brad.
the video I'm talking about.
Yep.
It was that World Cup double disc video.
Yep, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
as I digress.
Basically, or what I want to know from you, because this is one of those things that we should probably do. We should probably touch once a week, have an after hours thing like this where we discuss upcoming.
I'll be at the beach here for a couple weeks, I think. So
upcoming shows and what have you. I know that we were talking about getting an image package together, and it'll probably be a series of 1 or 2 different interviews. I guess one of the questions that I have for you, Jules, is who out there do you want to hear more about? We've talked about some of the upcoming programs, but of course, you have to have an affinity for someone else out there.
Great question. Didn't even know that one was coming. So I mean, there are so many stories.
Right.
Oh, goodness. I'm
Well, the ties, here's what I'll touch. I've been in talks with the Aftershock camp, in which Maliszewski has played on Aftershock for many, many, many years. And I'm sure that it's been more than just one Maliszewski over the years.
it's only Richie. Only Richie's the only guy to play for Shock.
Wow. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, my dad and all those dudes, they were Baltimore Rats for quite some time.
Yep.
And then compete against the All A's, and then those guys moved over to the All A's, and then ultimately my dad and Richie left, formed Image. Greg stayed for a year, and then he came over to Image that following year.
We were talking about the Rats earlier, and I go back to that era with the team because I've actually competed against the Rats. It didn't go well for my team, obviously, but do you know when or who exactly was on that team from that era?
I've got some pictures I probably can dig up. That's more of a question for Cole and my dad.
Yep. They would know. And it's just one of those. Were your uncles on the Rats as well?
I couldn't even tell you who was on that team. I mean, I was biting at my parents' ankles at that point.
Right. And I mean, and I understand that because you had to have been how old at that time, if you were to venture a guess. I mean, that's. When were you born?
88.
Yeah.
You were this year.
Way before your time.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yep. Okay. And it's just one of those things, and it makes me feel old. You know what I mean? Because it's like
people see me when I go to tournaments, and they're like, "I remember you when you were this big," and they do the thing like, you're. I'm like, yeah, now I'm here. Like
now I'm a 30-year-old man. Get away from me, I jokingly
call Lasoya Uncle Chris.
Right.
I'm like, hey, Uncle Chris. And he just looks at me and shakes his head.
Right. Right. Stop calling me that.
He's the only guy I probably can do that with, because anyone else is just going to look at me and go, what?
Right.
But you know what? Him. Lasoya's, any of those guys that were on the serial killer videos.
Yep.
And obviously there's a lot of guys that got left off those lists. But really, I think that, when you want to talk about, great players, it's those guys.
Yep.
Those impact players, and I think it's really more the utility player. That is that impact player that everyone knows.
Right.
Lasoya, Lang, Greenspan.
Yeah.
There's just top three that came right to my head off the bat. But I mean,
right.
Brandon Mayo, another fantastic dude, plays with the Sabre Wolves. I got to be, friends with him. And, right before my first event, when we were going pro, I reached out to him and asked him for some advice.
Right.
I got to talk to Pep, become good friends with him.
Yep.
He's another person I reach out to. My dad, all those guys.
Yep, I'm trying to get something together with Pep. He's busy saving the world with those dope ass masks that he's got.
Oh, I'm getting a few of them too. He makes great gear. Obviously, you got to see it in the video you put out with me in those denim tiger stripes.
Yep.
Obviously, we're a BK sponsored team, so in all the events now, you're going to see me in those joggers with my tree trunks for legs.
Right.
But he makes a fantastic product, top to bottom. And I'm even getting a couple masks. I got one coming for my wife and my little girl with some lips on them and all that jazz. Like
fantastic.
He kills it.
Yep.
And I love supporting him, and I will keep doing it until he's done.
Yep, absolutely. Well, here's where I want to wrap it up for the evening. And the way that I want to do this is first by thanking you for helping me and following me along in this journey that we're doing, because I think it's good work, and you need to be acknowledged with your behind the scenes and select show appearances, because it's one of those things where I believe that people bring balance. I mean, you have a unique perspective. You have a unique skill set. You have love for the classic game. You have skill and success in the current game and also in the current classic format. So we could, do hours and hours and hours and hours of us talking, and it wouldn't get old for me, just because I like to hear about those aspects of your life. But is there anyone that you want to give a shout out to? Your company, please promote your company. Please.
Yeah,
now's your moment.
we my dad and I and my mom Mimi as well, we own and operate Route 40 Paintball Park in White Marsh, and obviously everyone's dealing with this COVID shenanigans right now. So just, hope everyone makes it out well. The easiest thing to say is that, I wouldn't be here without the support of my parents.
Yes.
And to, come across this, beautiful, wonderful game. There's so many people to thank, and, too many names to forget to just say everything.
Right.
But obviously, my parents, I've got so many memories with, teammates, to be, to share field with my Uncle Rich and Greg. Like, there was a time in which we nearly almost had old Maliszewski's playing with Image, even, Greg's son, Josh, and the very first ICC, Richie was playing with the other Image team. But it was my dad, myself, Greg, and Josh. We were all on that original Image team. But I guess, really in the end, today's been an interesting day for me. Won't go into details, but obviously, But, the podcast being called Paintball Therapy, this is something that, you know, not many people get to do it. Some people do it and it's a flash in the pan, but there are others like yourself, myself, all these other guys that have been on the podcast. Like, this is their life.
Yeah.
We're able to travel the world to go shoot people.
Right.
Like, I was fortunate enough to go play pro indoor lacrosse. I got to travel the world to go beat people with a stick and punch people in the face.
Right.
I've lived on two different extreme elements of the world, and you know, the stories I have from all my other things,
right.
Just this is a wonderful thing.
Yes.
And you know, today was the day in which, so the other two shouts, my buddy Chris Pat Rush and Abe Ignite. Chris doesn't play anymore. He's a great lacrosse player that I get to play with as well. Abe plays and runs Revo D4, D5, something like that. He's one of the guys you see in all the videos when I'm drilling. He used to be a master's bodybuilder, and my man is scary as all get on. He's a Baltimore City cop, so definitely scared of that guy. I do not want to be on the back end of him.
No.
You know, and this has been great to be friends with you and to become better friends with you through all of this.
Yeah.
And I can certainly say that all the people I've definitely talked bad about, I'm a small egoed person that it's sometimes I you know, my mouth keeps going before my thumbs can stop it.
Right.
But you know, this is a wonderful community that's extremely supportive, and obviously, just to tag in with that, all the GZ guys. That is a wonderful family to be a part of. Gonna give a shout out to my buddy Rich Martinez, Mr. Newton. You can see him on the People's Court getting sued.
Yep.
But he won, which is great. It's great. He's gonna see it. It's awesome, as you know it.
Right.
You know, Will, Archie, Cole, Dave Rotunda, Darcy, the Liners, all just, you know, Mike Moore, Sean Henderson, Sam Telford, Bill Raber, Eugene. Oh, there's that one guy I'm definitely forgetting that's hating me right now. Obviously, it's not Christian, not Johnny, and they just
right.
There's too many people to thank for, you know, I am only here because it's a team effort, and my teammates have allowed me to be who I am.
Yep. And that's one of the real big things that I appreciate about you, Jules, is your ability to understand the importance of others in this team sport that we play, because it is important. And I also love the fact that I end with that kind of stuff, because nobody always nails it. And then when they get done, they send me a message and go, I forgot this guy or my wife or this or that. And I say, that's perfect, because the next episode that you're on, you can thank them again. You will be on more and more and more. But that's a great way for me to get a guest to come back, and by not being able to thank everyone. So you're in good company.
I will say, just as a little end for a fun thing, Mark Knopp explaining how he did this double or triple bunker and push.
Yes.
We've all had one or two experiences like that. And I will always remember him just being like, walk up to him and just bam, and just go over here and bam, and just that fucker over here, bam. Like, it's to be on that, and I would just yell, but it's you can't explain that, and it makes you smile because you know it,
right?
You know, you got Rich, you run, it's awesome.
Absolutely,
all those guys.
Absolutely. And for the people who haven't seen what he's talking about, I believe it's even free online right now. You can go watch
on YouTube.
Push.
Yep,
on YouTube.
Push.
Yep.
You can also find Sunday Drivers. And really, you know, go down that rabbit hole. You can find tons of content.
You need, if you don't know what we're talking about, you need to go out and educate yourself. So with that, Jules, I'm going to say again, thank you for everything. We've got some amazing programs coming up. It's definitely not good night, because I'm here for you anytime that you need me. You know, in therapy or outside of therapy, you know that I'm here. I appreciate you, bro. And let's just keep this going forward and being positive.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Onward and forward.
Perfect. I appreciate you, sir. And we'll do this again soon.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you as well. Thank you again for everything.
Yep, absolutely.
Sweet.
Peace.